So I started a still life, or at least I have the sketch in, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna show the whole thing well, but I'm gonna try to get as much as I can. Can anyone tell what it is based on the sketch? It's gonna be a nice kitchen piece, hopefully. So let's see. I'm looking at the subject. There's some rainbow carrots here and a metal pot, an onion, and some potatoes on a wooden cutting board. So let's see if I can try to verbalize what I'm doing here. Feel free to ask any questions. No dishes. Well, I guess the pot is a dish. So right now I'm squinting and I'm gonna get in these lighter colors first. I pretty much just go over the sketch, so the sketch doesn't have to be very fancy. This is the wood of the cutting board. And right now the paint is very thin. I'm gonna get some of this yellowish background. And it's gonna get cooler as it recedes slightly, a little more desaturated up here. And then I'm gonna bring in, since this is a very reflective surface, I'm gonna bring in some of this color into the pot. You can barely even see the edge of this bowl, so that's gonna be a nice soft edge, I think. And don't know if you can hear my dog. Here's the onion. There's not a lot of light on this half, but there is on this half. All right, we're getting there. Let's get in some of these carrot colors. And the carrots are primarily in shade. So the colors are going to be pretty dark. And they're pretty warm too. Again, I'm bringing this into the pot, the same colors. It might change. It is a little bit darker on the pot, but for now I'm just blocking stuff in. Darken this a bit. And I am focusing on the values, but I'm not super picky about them. They don't have to be perfect. You will see a general value structure already, though, starting to come out. I'm getting these darks. When I'm using a color, I kind of try to look around the scene to where else I can apply it. And going in and getting some more of these light spots that I'm seeing. There is a touch of light right here on the carrot. So when I do this, I'm kind of using my brush as a straight line to measure like where the edge of this onion is in comparison to this carrot. Just in case you're wondering. A lot of pretty colors in this onion. And it's stuff like that, like the colors of this onion, that I really want to nail down in case it changes with the light. So here we go, adding some of this pretty blue color that I'm seeing on the top of the onion. That part is pretty important to me. And then some of this green over here. I don't think it's quite this dark, but it might be. Valleys can be tricky. See a little bit of this going on. Okay. Now I want to get in a little more of these shadows. It helps me break down the shapes a little better. I like to kind of carve out the shapes. It's a little too big. this potato here. And this cutting board just follows all the way through. A little bit of shadows going on from the carrots. I'm trying to get a feel if there's any interest in me starting a Patreon. I've been kind of on the fence about it just because I would want it to be really good and invest a lot of time into making a good product, but I don't really want to do it if there's not going to be a lot of people. So if there's any interest, please take a minute to message me. And I mean serious interest, not just, that whole thing where people say they want to print and then they never buy it. That happens a lot. It's fine. But I would want to invest a lot of time. The dogs are being so nuts right now. Puppies are crazy. Let's blacken this potato. It's just a russet, plain old russet potato. I like this though because it's kind of the same color as the cutting board, so it doesn't take away from the focal point, which is going to be right here, the carrots and the reflection. And I have to thank Chris Greco for helping me with some composition decisions. Thanks, Solid Blue. Yeah, I'll look into it. Oh, I have not used Mijello's gouache paint. This is the watercolor palette, but the paint I use is kind of a mixed bag right now. I would say it's mostly M. Graham and Winsor & Newton. So we have some of these really saturated red carrots. It's pretty cool. And we have one of the classic orange guys down here. The top is hiding behind the onion, but I might bring it up just so that it reads more clearly. I'm not sure yet. Hi, Eduardo. Alright, let's get some of these stems in. It's kind of got this bluish tint going on because we have a skylight and the light outside right now is pretty gray. the stems are they're sweeping around here. I like to add a little bit of red to my greens to tone them down slightly. Sometimes burnt sienna is also a good thing to add to it to tone it down. It's kind of like a reddish, earthy, brown, orangish color. Yeah, all this right now is just this guy. It's a 1-inch flat, and I really want to use the largest brushes that I can. It helps me from not fiddling around with getting too into the details. I will end up working with a smaller brush, but for the beginning session, I always recommend using a larger brush. And I'm still using pretty thin paint. I kind of want to curl these leaves so it makes the composition circular, but I'm not sure. That might look weird. I see some nice blues in this pot that I want. So I'm going to put these in here. And lastly, as we finish up this block in, it's kind of a cool shadow on the table. But I don't like to use just plain blue. I like to add a little bit of color to it. Because there's all sorts of colors going on in shadows. It's not just, add a little bit of blue to everything. Thank you, Aisha. Let's see. Getting the colors right from real life. That is a tough one. I've gotten that question a couple of times. I really am not quite sure how to answer it yet. It's kind of just from practicing so much and studying a lot of colors, like on a regular basis. It helps to know a little color fundamentals, like why you see the color, how it's reflecting, and what surfaces reflect a certain way. But I would also want to mention that a lot of this is value. There's a saying that value does all the work and color gets all the credit, or something like that, and I think it's pretty true. Values are very important and underappreciated. You can get away with a lot if you have the right values. Thank you. Ah, you're so nice. All right, so one important part, I love this going on, well, in real life, not right now on the painting, but the things I want to focus on, I love this handle here that I haven't even put in yet. It's just got a really nice shape, a nice silhouette. And when I'm painting it, I'm looking at the negative space. I'm looking at the space right here. Watch, is gonna be terrible. But this open spot, and I'm not really thinking about like the outside lines of it. I'm just looking at everything like it's a shape. I'm not thinking of it as a handle. Just looking at all the angles and comparing them to what's around it. That's where a lot of people get caught up. Like when they say they can't draw noses or can't draw, ears. It's just shapes. Don't think of it as, a nose. Thank you, MJ0507. Okay, so everything's blocked in. It's all in very loose, watery paint, but you can see the general value structure. You have a feeling for the direction of the light, which is important. You know the basic idea of the colors. So that's the most important part, and we got it. Just taking a little time to make sure I get all this white, because it's a personal preference. I just don't like having white of the paper shine through. Some people do. It's okay. All right. So I'm squinting now, which is important. I want to push back these shapes. They're standing out, oops, a little bit too much. Mistakes with gouache is fine. You can either pull it up with some water, or you can work with the mistake, or you can paint on top with very thick paint. All right. So the brightest parts, when I'm squinting, this area is super bright. And a way to make it even brighter is by darkening what's going on around it. Sorry if my voice is all croaky. But while I made this shape darker now, I still want this part, when I squint, is even darker. So we just need to remember that. palette's getting at that point where I might need to clean it. It's pretty nasty. I'll show a shot of what it looks like before I clean it. And so now I'm really trying to fix the values and get the darkest darks and the lightest lights and nail those aspects down. So I'm squinting. This is pretty dark here. Why did I make some part of the lighter colors? Can you clarify exactly? Oops. Yeah, I'll show you actually, let me show you right now. Here's the palette. And to keep it from drying, this is an airtight palette. It's Mijello. There's a lot of other brands that look very similar on Amazon. They're all cheap. I leave these in there. I don't, clean out my palette too often. There is like a little bit of mold on this guy that I might clear out. But for the most part, I just leave them in there. And if you paint as much as I do, you don't have to worry about cleaning out the whole palette. And I just squeeze in whatever is running low. So my palette is at a point where it's a little too messy and my colors are starting to get a little dirty. So I'm going to clean it right now. And I use a spray bottle. And this is how I keep the paint wet too. I'm constantly spraying, and if I'm painting with other gouache artists, I'm usually yelling at them to spray their paint. All right, so, sorry, my dog was yelping, checking on him. This is how I clean it. Have some paper towels. There we go. Ah, so clean. I do this a couple of times a session. I didn't used to do this as much, but I feel like with experience, I'm learning the importance of keeping it clean. So here's the painting so far, and here's the still life. That's what I'm pretty much painting. Oh, you're welcome, Sarah. Thanks for watching. So let me get my paint. Hold on one second. I'm going to pop this back in here. There we go. And grab some more paint. Check on the dogs. They're still alive. Okay. I'm back with my paint bag. Adding a little more white. Oh, so I did add lighter colors, but I used a very thin wash because I wanted the paper to kind of come through. And spots like this and this are, I'm gonna try to preserve as much of this as possible. I do have a tendency to go over it, but ideally I would leave it because that's gonna be the brightest that it gets pretty much. So it's a very thin wash and I can work on top of it without it reactivating. But I'm also only placing the light parts where I know I'm not going to put darks over on top. Yeah, this is a Arches watercolor block. It's 11 by 14. Actually, that's going to be more yellow. It's kind of this yellow green. All right. I want to put in a little bit of this light on this carrot, which adds a nice touch to the painting. Gives the carrot a little more dimension. And we're gonna add a little bit of light here. It turned out a little too orange, but there's some green behind here that will help push this forward. I'll put in soon. We have these onion skins doing some cool stuff. Let's see here. So now that we have, I should have taken progress shots. Oh well. I'm just going in and adding some more details. And kind of looking to see which areas I need to push back and bring forward. So squinting, this spot is pretty dark here. This carrot's gonna be a little bit darker. I need to fix those values. And we're darkening this here. Oh wait, I didn't see all the new comments. This is gouache. And, oh yeah, that's it. Okay, yes, this is gouache. So I'm still just trying to fix the values. I'm standing back constantly to check. Let's go ahead and darken this carrot. It's not all that dark. It's actually a little bit lighter than that. Some blue from the light outside here. Oh, you should. That'd be really cool to see with the abstraction. I think eventually I will try out the abstract route, but I'm still learning. It's a process. Okay. This is a pretty nice blue. I'm squinting and I like the values of it. It's not too dark. But I'm still gonna go over it, I think. Carefully. It needs to be a little bit darker in some spots. And the color kind of changes as you go throughout the onion. And this is a good opportunity to kind of carve out these shapes, the onion skin. I don't really know any books, to be honest. I have learned a lot of this from painting from life almost every day. And I really don't know anything about abstract painting, sorry. And I will upload this to my YouTube page, which is with the username Heather Ihn, IHN. And I will also add this to my stories. It doesn't let me add it to my highlights because I think it's too long. But I will try to make it available and I will post where it's gonna land. Okay. It's a darker shadow here. It's almost black. But I don't want to attract too much of attention to the spot. So I'm not going to add a ton of contrast. since this carrot is mostly in shadow, I'm going to darken it a bit. I'm going to add some of that same dark color down here. Giving my palette another quick clean. I'm doing this because there's some spots that I want to add that are going to be lighter and more saturated, and I need a clean spot to do that. So I want to work on my lightest lights right now. This onion, which I said I was going to preserve, but I'm really just going to kind of almost dry brush over. So you can still see a little bit of the yellow glow, but it's making it slightly lighter. Little hint there. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll make a stew later. These are all my stew ingredients. It's a pretty regular staple in the house. I am not the best cook though, I'll admit. Gonna work on this potato a bit. Potatoes are tough to paint because they're so simple, but just like these brown blobs. When I'm looking closer at the potato, there's a lot of really interesting colors, like a purpley blue. So let's get some of that in there. It's a little warmer as it approaches the cutting board. And there's a little bit of this bounce light. And the core shadow is pretty warm. I might need to darken that. Or maybe it will darken on its own, like gouache usually does. Again, there's some kind of bluish purples over here. Cool. There we go. Potato. Actually, not quite done. I want to sharpen these edges slightly. When I look at this is pretty close. This could be a little bit darker here. And I'm doing this all while squinting. I'll probably focus a little bit on this shape here in the background. And then darkening some of these bits to bring this forward. Thank you, Aisha. I am glad I can entertain. Just trying to practice. I'd like to get into doing workshops, but I'm so nervous. It's good to be able to practice and kind of explain what I'm doing. Let's go in and cover up some of this background. So I don't like seeing the line work from my pencil, but that is another personal preference. So I'm just going in and covering it. But if you like it, you can leave it. Sometimes I wish I left it. Doing backgrounds in gouache is probably the most annoying, because if you make any mistake, you have to kind of, and you want like even coverage, you have to go over and do it all over again and again and again. Thank you, M. Just gonna call you M because that's easier. I don't know if you can actually hear me stepping back, but I'm constantly stepping back, checking my work. Again, I'm adding a little bit of a cool color to push this back. And while it's still wet, it will kind of blend together better. Oh, MJ. That works. I'm looking at the ellipse. Ellipses are so hard. But I really want this edge to be nice and clean. Actually, I'll probably go in and bring this up a little. Oops. Okay. I find that I have a couple of greens on my palette, but I really don't use them very much. And if I do, I mix them considerably with other colors. I just feel like out of the two, they're not quite right. But they can speed up the process a little bit, so I do recommend having them in your palette. Of course, I do use my linden green quite a bit. Alright, I'm going to add in a little bit of this green here. Just to kind of burn out this red carrot shape. I think I'll carve this down a little bit. That carrot's looking a little wonky. It's also going to help when I darken this guy here. I feel like the light has probably changed a little bit. I don't remember this being quite as dark as it's showing up. everything's kind of curving around. Let's see. I like working and painting all sorts of things. Still life is one of my favorites because I can control it. But I do love plein air painting, getting outside. I like painting figures a lot. It's just more like I paint what's available to me. And if it's a rainy day out, or if I'm watching the dogs, I'm stuck inside. But still lifes are great. As far as looking at other artists, I actually don't look at a lot of other artists. Number one, I'm pretty easily and unintentionally influenced. So I just try not to look at other art too much. And two, I really like figuring things out on my own. I can smell the onion. It's making me hungry. Hey, Main Loop. Sergio. Let's see. Any place in the house that I haven't painted from? I really don't think